Hey guys, today we're going to talk about what I consider a lighting setup that just almost always works. It's always going to be my go-to, the best solution that I can think of if you're just trying to figure out what lighting setup to use in a given situation. You really don't have things completely plotted out. And I just to preface this right off the bat, sort of a disclaimer. This is the ideal lighting setup that I'm going to describe, but it's not always the one that I end up using. Okay, but it's a good starting point. We're just going to get right to it. All right. So the portrait lighting setup that always works. We're going to start with um, just identifying some real truths here, okay? This is going to work no matter what type of lighting you're using, whether it's constant light, natural light, depending on the situation. Sometimes you can use a window light for a really controlled directional light if the conditions outside are good. But this is why I always like to use something that I can control, which is flash. And so, yeah, we can definitely use uh, just a regular speed light type flash. We can slip some kind of umbrella or a softbox, preferably, over that as a modifier. Doesn't really matter as long as you get it to work. And by the way, I do have this training available, and I'll link to it somewhere below this video. But yeah, this is one of my trainings, and it's free. It's called Your First Off-Camera Flash Setup, 10-minute guide to flash photography. It's pretty popular. A lot of people check that out, and it's a good primer, and it'll get you started. All right, the portrait lighting setup that always works. First, I want to introduce you to the 5 portrait lighting patterns that I always teach, okay? This is something that we can get into in greater detail at some point, but for right now, since we're not going to actually cover all of these in this training, we're actually going to move on to go straight to this pattern right here, which is the short lighting pattern. But I just thought I'd give you an overview of all the portrait lighting patterns so you're not in the dark about where this one recommended lighting pattern comes into play. Okay, so we've got 5 basic portrait lighting patterns. These are traditional lighting patterns, and all they really mean is where you place your light and where your subjects placed in relative to that light, and the turn of your subject's head has a lot to do with. Okay, the first one is called split lighting. All right, and this is good for, as you can see, kind of a dramatic, mysterious look. Now, split light is something that you'll rarely use, but when you do need it, you know it's there, and it really has this strong effect. Split lighting is as it sounds. It splits your subject's face into 2 separate uh, regions where you've got light on one side and almost complete darkness on the other. And we've got butterfly lighting. This is the classic old Hollywood beauty style lighting, and it looks just like this. They used to use it back in the day, you know, the golden age of Hollywood, for young, you know, beautiful women who the studios just wanted to highlight as somebody you wanted to go and see at the movies. And this right here will show you the classic lighting pattern as it appears on a face. And so you've got the face up front. Lots of times it's going to highlight, if you've got good cheekbones, it highlights the cheekbones because the shadow is being cast down almost from right above, but it's a little more above and forward. And the reason that they call it butterfly lighting, and it's often called Paramount lighting or Hollywood lighting, but the reason that they like to label it butterfly lighting is right here under the nose. Sometimes people see this shape with the shadow as looking almost like a butterfly shape. I don't always get that myself, but that's what it looks like. Anyway, the rest of the shadow pattern and light pattern here, it's pretty obvious. The face is forward, uh, past the chin, it drops into darkness, and so it really highlights um, the face like that. It's kind of a beauty shot. Then we've got Rembrandt lighting. This is very classic and artistic as far as a portrait goes. And the reason they call it Rembrandt is because they had this painter back in the days of classic uh, portraiture and painting. His name was Rembrandt. And this is a look. In photography, we denote this with sort of this triangle shape of light on the shadow side of the face. So it's not quite, but almost like split lighting in that you've got a really light side over here, well illuminated, and over here on this side, it's pretty dark. But Unlike split lighting, you do have a little bit of light showing up here on this side of the face. And sometimes this shadow from here to here, uh, I guess you'd call it the shadow created by the nose uh, towards this side of the face. Sometimes that's closed, it's a closed loop, and sometimes it's an open loop. And this is a little triangle of light right here. And that is very beautiful, classic looking type of portraiture. And by the way, just to note, this would not be a split light if our subject was not facing directly forward and if our light wasn't 90 degrees and lower to the subject as it is in this. And here, of course, butterfly lighting. If you're going to get this shadow pattern, that light has to be up above the subject and slightly forward of the subject relative to where the subject is, looking. So if her head is turned a little more to the right, then you've got to have that light kind of rotate out there with her. And even though the camera position might not change, it's still really the same shadow pattern. And here you've got the face forward again to create that look. And then we've got the broad lighting pattern. This is good for narrow faces. Because it visually broadens the look of the face. Not that our subject here has a narrow face, but this is just, we're using the same subject so that we can make a point about how all this works. And so broad lighting is where you've got the light over here on one side. In this case, the light would be positioned over on camera left, sort of above 45 degrees-ish from the subject's face. So up here somewhere and about just in front and to the side of the subject. I like to call this the 45-45 because you've got the light up here, which is approximately 45 degrees up above the subject's face and approximately 45 degrees off the camera to subject axis. So the light is over to one side. The reason we call this broad is because the part of the subject's face that is more towards the camera, so the bigger part of the subject's face has got the light on it. And so there's more light hitting the face there. And then the part of the subject's face farther from the camera is more in darkness. And so you've got this much of the face kind of lit up and illuminated. And it's really not this part of the face. So as a viewer, your eyes are focusing more on the lighter parts of the face. And so that's the bigger part that's illuminated here. So it's broad. Okay. As opposed to short lighting. This is often described as good for fuller faces because it sort of slims the look. Now, I think that short lighting, no matter what shape the face is almost always going to be the most flattering type of light. Now, short lighting and broad lighting are pretty similar. And when you're first getting started with this, you might not be able to tell the difference here because the light is basically in the same position relative to the subject. It's off 45 degrees off the camera to subject axis, and it's about 45 degrees pointing down to the subject's face. But the thing is, it's really where the subject is turning her head in relation to the light. So in this case, over here, notice that the subject, her head is turned this way towards camera right. The light is over here on camera left. So she's actually facing sort of away from the light. And you've got that broad light pattern. Whereas here, the light is over here on camera right at this point, and the subject is facing camera right. So she's got her head turned towards the light. And so the darker area here where the camera is, you've got that line from the camera to the subject, you're seeing more of the darker, shadowy side of the face towards the camera, whereas where her face is turned this way towards the light, you've got a little bit less coverage over there as opposed to all of this space over here that's kind of darker. And, like I said, for whatever reason, this is a pretty flattering look, and everybody seems to look good when you use a short lighting pattern. And that is the pattern that I think works just about all the time. Now we're going to take another look at broad lighting, and you can see that it's not a loser kind of thing, even though it technically can make the face look a little broader. Sometimes it's just the look that you get because you're in the moment, you're shooting, and the face turns this way and the face turns that way, and a shot just looks good. And so see, it still works. So you've got the light up here on camera left. The subject's turned a little bit more towards towards the camera in this case, and it's really a broad lighting pattern. Still looks fine. And over here, this is also a broad lighting pattern too, because the light again is on camera left coming down this way, and the subject's face is turned away from the light. You could argue that it works for this shot because she's turning towards, towards the darkness, away from the light. You can make your own poetic metaphors for that. But short lighting, on the other hand, just seems to work. And these are two examples of that I just pulled off of my drive from a while back. So this is short lighting here. This is a musician who self-describes his music as kind of dark. And so if you had that broad lighting over here, his face would just look, much broader and lighter, and it'll look a little airier, I think. Whereas here, it gives it a little more mystery, because you've got all this shadow facing towards the camera and a little bit of light on this side so that you've got some definition. And that's another thing you like about light at these angles is it gives you a lot of visual information about the subject's form and features. And here is another example of short lighting. Of course, the light's over here, subject's facing this way. And you can see it's not really a hard short light, because if you look at these shadows here, the shadows don't just flip all the way out to this other side, to the camera side. So, but you can see underneath here that the shadows are swinging out towards this side. So yeah, there's variations in all this stuff. There's no, everything doesn't have to look exactly like this. It's still the same lighting pattern. So how do you do short lighting? I'm just going to quickly show you some from one of my courses. This is from my course, Flash Portraits Made Simple, where I cover all these types of lighting setups. And this is most certainly one of my favorites. So this is the top view of short lighting. Front view, view from the side, and this would be the result. Now these are illustrations, so yeah, I know our model here, our digital model, looks a little weird, but this just gives you kind of an extreme example of what short lighting looks like. Optionally, you're going to have fill light. More than likely, you are going to have fill light, unless you want this just to be really dramatic. You're going to have some hair light, background light, and for that fill light, you can use a reflector. You don't have to use an actual light for fill. And we cover all of those roles of, those different lighting roles in several of our videos, including this one. This seems to be pretty popular, where I describe the key, the fill, and the hair light. And I'll link to that down below too. So this is important. All of this is about, to create this lighting pattern, it's all about light placement and the turn of the head. So it's just not light placement, because like we talked about before, you've got your light at the 45 here. If she had her head turned the opposite way, and she had her nose going more towards the camera left, in this case, with the light on the right-hand side, you would get broad lighting, just classic broad lighting. So you can switch from one to the other with not moving your light at all. You can even do butterfly lighting, especially if you swung your camera out this way and you were shooting more from this angle right here, and you had her looking kind of straight up at the light. I mean, your light doesn't really have to move. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But a lot of this has to do with the turn of the head, okay? So that's basically it. That is how you achieve what I consider, the portrait lighting setup that always works. Just set your light up, kind of like this, kind of like we do in this 10-minute guide to flash photography. Just set your light up like this, and you can achieve so many different looks with that. So now I should tell you that we have a community that you probably want to jump into. It's called the Portrait Club. And this is where we basically discuss all of this stuff. And so this is where you can go to check it out. I've got some information here for you. And depending on when you see this, you may or may not be able to get in on a free trial. So I'd go and check that out. It's called the Portrait Club. Have a lot of good stuff in here. You've got access to all these different courses. Here's the flash portraits made simple that I talked about earlier. And we cover basics and we cover all sorts of things, building your portfolio, boudoir, on-camera flash, even how to, get your really good portrait results with an on-camera flash. We even have an extensive photography business guide if you're into that. If you're thinking about making money with your photography, you can do that. We're doing many challenges now. That's a good way, to learn. Just got optional assignments that you can do in the community and get that going. This is something I think you'd really like. We've got a lot of interesting discussions going on. You should go ahead and check it out. And it's called the Portrait Club. I'll link to it below. I think you'll really like that. There's a lot to learn there. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. Basically, I just wanted to get across to you that one simple lighting pattern, one simple setup, you can do so much with it. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just takes learning, the fundamentals, just how to set up a light. And I know when you're first getting started and you haven't done it before, it can seem a little complicated and overwhelming, but you just do it once. Set up one light stand with a flash, a bracket, an umbrella. Do that once and it's just simple. It's like riding a bike. You just know how to do it and you can set up multiple lights that way and you can set up all sorts of things. Create any kind of portrait, any kind of look that matches your vision. This is really exciting once you learn those basics. So if you found this video useful, make sure you click like, hit subscribe, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. That's about all I got for you today. See you next time.